Hi, everyone. Welcome to Leisrealtalk. All right, let's get started. A 62-year-old man rammed his newly purchased SUV into crowds at a Zhuhai sports complex, killing dozens and injuring many more. The Chinese government delayed nearly 24 hours before releasing official information on the casualties. It wasn't until about 6:30 p.m. On the following day that state media first reported that 35 people had died. However, there are at least three discrepancies in the official report. What are they? Additionally, in a very rare move, Xi Jinping issued instructions regarding the tragedy, calling for severe punishment for the perpetrator. So, why is Xi Jinping so concerned? And who is the man who committed the attack? And what's his motive? Um, all right. So you probably by now you've already heard about the Zhuhai road rage, because media widely reported. Uh, the attack highlights many of China's problems today, particularly broken bonds and a broken system. Everything that happened before, during, and after the road rage in Zhuhai epitomizes the systemic failures of China's economy, judicial system, and social trust. The Chinese government's cover up and misinformation have only added salt to the wound, and the pain has been felt even outside China. Foreign press, foreign media rushed to the crash site to report the tragedy, but they faced significant obstruction. BBC reporter Stephen McDonnell, I have a picture here. I don't know.
And dozens more, many more have been injured. The death toll may even increase. The type of thing that has happened, unfortunately, in China before. There are these.
Okay, I'm just going to show you where this man.
Stop it from happening. And then we have this type of thing of the government trying to stop it from happening. 你别，你别做那个，我也给警察打电话。
你给警察打电话了？
那行可以，好吧，那行我可以，好，行可以。哎，你呢？你是谁？
我是中国公民。
你没有权利打扰我们。
我是中国公民，你在中国拍，你
没有权利，
你有采访证吗？
你没关系的。
不要在这乱拍。
你别打扰我们，你别做那个。我们告诉警察，你别做那个，你别做那个。
Okay, all right. So that's that. And not only the BBC reporter faced this, a similar incident happened to a Japanese reporter from Japan's TBS, which is Tokyo Broadcasting System. Upon arriving at the scene, he was surrounded by local residents who called the police. And then this Japanese reporter was subsequently detained by the police, by Chinese police, and forced to delete all his recorded materials. So let me backtrack for a minute. My job as a YouTuber focusing on China is to tell you the reality of the Middle Kingdom. It's not an easy job because stitching together a coherent story about a country suffering from systemic economic and social breakdown, where reliable data and public voices are suppressed, is mission impossible. And when this attack in Zhuhai happened, I wasn't sure how much interest my viewers would have in a story of a Chinese man seeking revenge. However, as more details surfaced, and after I watched the above clip from BBC, I realized that this is the perfect story to tell to achieve my impossible mission, which is to paint a realistic picture of China for you. So let me first talk about what happened. The story is riveting. I mean, I even surprised myself about, this story. So stay to the end. So let me quickly tell you what happened. So on the evening of November 11th, a horrific incident occurred at the Zhuhai Sports Center where a man driving an SUV at high speed rammed into groups of walkers who walk on the field, out in the open space outside the sports center. And reports online suggested that at least 200 people were hit. Following the incident, the Chinese authorities attempted to suppress information, blocking related news from trending online. And it wasn't until 24 hours later, in the evening of November 12th, that the Zhuhai Public Security Bureau issued a statement claiming that 35 people died and 43 were hospitalized. The report mentioned the suspect, of a 62-year-old divorced man by the name, whose last name is Fan, had injured himself before being apprehended. He sustained severe injuries, leaving him unconscious and temporarily unable to be interrogated. The statement also claimed that preliminary investigations suggest the incident stemmed from the man's dissatisfaction with the outcome of a property division, or the division of property, marital property, ordered following his divorce. People immediately pointed out two discrepancies in the report. First, the number of casualties, according to eyewitnesses, is higher than the stated 35. Now, you have to understand that local officials in China like to cap casualties at 35 because the CCP has a rule, which is that any major tragedies or accidents with casualties over 35 will result in the removal of the leader in that municipality. That's why you rarely see China having disasters or accidents causing casualties over 35. The second discrepancy is the police report, which said that the suspect was unconscious and unable to be interrogated. However, it also stated that the incident was related to court-related divorce litigation and property division. So how did the police know this detail if the suspect was unconscious? So the police was caught, and they immediately revised the statement by removing all the references to court-related divorce litigation. This revised statement prompted more skepticism among Chinese netizens, so they started to dig deeper, trying to find out why the authorities removed this whole paragraph about divorce, divorce litigation. So then a screenshot of the suspect's medical record started to circulate online, and it reviewed his full name. I do have a picture. If you read Chinese, I'm sure you can appreciate this. If not, that's okay. I'll tell you what it says. The medical record identified the patient's full name as Fan Wei Qiu. His age at 62. He's a divorced man with no occupation. He's originally from Jingzhou, Liaoning province, and now lives in Zhuhai. He was admitted to the hospital at 10:59 p.m. That's the evening of November 11th. And the report stated that he injured himself an hour earlier, causing multiple neck and chest wounds, and he suffered hemorrhagic shock. The report notes that the patient was not unconscious and not experiencing breathing difficulties. His mental state was described as normal, and the record stated that he had normal urination. Now, the medical record, timestamped at 3:42 a.m. on November 12th, casts doubt on the police claim that the suspect was unconscious, suggesting that the authorities deliberately misrepresented the facts to avoid public scrutiny. So, who is this man, and what was his motive? The almighty Chinese netizens started digging deeper. They found a business registration document tied to the name Fan Wei Qiu in Zhuhai. And that's this. And So Fan obviously operates a store that sells construction materials, home appliances, and home remodeling supplies. Although there's a slight chance that Zhuhai City has two individuals by the same name, the chance isn't high because his last name isn't a common name like Wang or Li or Zhang. It's more than likely that it's the same person. And also, a salesperson from a car dealership confirmed that the man, Fan Weiqiu, bought a Jeep that was used in the attack a week before. So here's all the information on the car sales. And he took out a car loan and bought the Jeep a week ago, but got the car. He bought it a week ago, but got the car the day before the incident. The car is a BJ40 SUV. I think it's called Beijing. Here it is. It's basically, I think, a knockoff of or a copy of Jeep Wrangler. It cost him about 200,000 yuan, which is about what, 29,000 US dollars. So from this we can tell it's not a random act of violence, but a premeditated attack. So what's his motive? Well, based on the above information, we can conclude that Fan isn't a jobless or a penniless man. He has a business and the financial means to take out a loan to buy a $29,000 car, which isn't cheap to a Chinese in China. A $29,000 car isn't cheap. So why would this man give up everything he has to commit such an atrocious attack? Well, an anonymous netizen gave a hint. It says it's not due to poverty or money or financial stress, but injustice. To explain that, we must talk about where the attack took place. Do I have a map? Oh yeah, here's the map. So here's the map. You can see the red bubble. Well, everybody, almost all media reports talk about the fact that it took place at the city sports center. But that's only part of the story. The sports center is in a neighborhood where several residential compounds for government officials are located. The sports center is right across the street from the city's intermediate court. So you can see the red circle is the sports center. It was a sports complex. And then the red circle is the courthouse. So someone suggests that you could say the attack took place right across from the court, or you could say it took place on the in the open space outside the sports complex. A local resident reviewed that the attack was a case of targeted revenge. The neighborhood, or the neighborhood where the sports complex is located, has many residential compounds for families of public security, the public prosecutors, and court officials. So it's their neighborhood, it's their residential compounds. So those who go to the sports complex to exercise are mostly, or at that hour, are mostly current and past officials working in public security, public prosecution, and the court system, and their families. Some have reviewed that many of the victims that evening were indeed officials and their family. So it seems that Fan was targeting those individuals. I think this is the reason why the police was covering up, and why Xi Jinping, who doesn't very often speak out about these public tragedies or attacks, actually issued instructions this time. But that brings us the next question. So what's his motive? What conflict does Fan have with these officials? right? So this brings us to the text the police removed, which is his divorce and the division of marital property. So someone reviewed that the 62-year-old Fan gave 1.1 million yuan to divorce. I shouldn't say to divorce his 50-year-old wife. I would say as part of the divorce settlement, he was ordered to give 1.1 million yuan to his wife or his ex-wife. His revenge is tied to this 1.1 million yuan. And based on various sources on the internet, here's roughly the story. I don't think you need to see this map. Let me just come back. So here's the story. So Fan's wife is said to be an attractive woman and has been having an affair. Fan divorced her. During the divorce process, the court awarded his wife a much larger share of their joint assets or their marital property. Fan thinks it's unfair. Fan thinks this division of asset is unfair because she was the one who had the problem of infidelity. So he appealed, not just once, but repeatedly. But his appeals did not generate any result. And then he did his investigation. It turned out his wife's lover was a retired official in the judicial system who used his connections to influence the judge's decision on the division of their joint assets. And that was also the reason why Fan's appeals weren't successful. Oh, actually, I do need to show you the slides. I was wrong. There's one slide that I want to show you, and I think you can laugh. His ex-wife was a leader. Yeah, let me show you this slide. Here we go. This is a silly picture, but that's what it is. Okay, let's talk about what this group is. So here you have a picture of what's called the 抱 in Chinese, 暴走团, like walking group, but they are called power walking groups. So his ex-wife was a leader or an organizer of one of such groups, which this type of walking groups have gained popularity in China over the past decade as a form of fitness. So these groups, typically consisting of people aged between 40 to 70, they're middle-aged people and older people. These groups are known for their synchronized formations, uniform outfits, fanny pack style music players, and they like to do slogans and make a presence. They like to show off, while they walk. They try to make a presence when they walk in a group. So, and they often gather in public places like sports centers, after dinner, because that's when everyone is out, exercising. Sometimes maybe before dinner, but in the evenings, to do their walks. Fan's ex-wife is the leader of one such group, but her group includes many current and past government officials living in the area, and that's probably where she met her lover. Fan, feeling grieved about his wife's infidelity, the divorce, and the unfair division of their assets by the court, decided to seek justice on his own. It was said that he made sure that his ex and her lover were both on site among the walkers before the attack, and they were said to have died on the spot. Now, the story is very tragic, but it highlights several major problems in Chinese society today. Namely, a falling real estate sector and a doomed economy, the breakdown of families and relations due to high divorce rate, a corrupt judicial system, a police cover-up, censorship, and a government that tries to control everything yet losing it, as well as China's growing anti-foreigners sentiment. So you see all of that in this story. So let's talk about economic fallout. The man has a business that sells construction materials and home remodeling supplies. Now think about it. There's no way his business is doing well. All businesses tied to the real estate market are struggling now in China. Additionally, since this man is from Liaoning, right, he couldn't have had strong family connections locally that would help his business. So he's more than likely an entrepreneur who made some money by working very hard. And in an economic downturn, people like him, without the backing, without connections to the government, their financial prospect doesn't look very good. So that might have contributed to his, marriage crisis or marital crisis. And that might have affected his marriage because it's very common in China. So now let's talk about the marital fallout. Chinese media stated that China has the world's highest divorce rate. Let me come back. So yeah, I looked today, I was surprised. It's the Chinese saying that themselves. Since 2013, China's divorce rate has been steadily climbing. In 2022, its divorce rate hit 43.5%, with 4 provinces and direct municipalities exceeding 50%. That means half of the people who are married end up divorced, and the highest reaching 60%. Tianjin city ranked number 1 in having the highest divorce rate, followed by Heilongjiang and Jilin, which are both poor in the northeast. Beijing and Shanghai ranked 4th and 5th. They consistently rank among the regions with the highest divorce rates in China. And another survey indicates that the proportion of divorces caused by infidelity has been increasing yearly. And now it has reached 50%, meaning 1 in 2 divorces was attributed to extramarital affairs. So infidelity is a serious problem, tearing apart relations and Chinese families. So according to a Chinese sexologist, I looked up that word. He describes himself as a sexologist. His name is Pan Suiming. According to him, he said extramarital affairs among Chinese women have risen dramatically. In 2000, it was less than 5%, but by 2015, it had increased to 13.3%, and by 2021, it reached a staggering 31.2%, and is still rising. That means 1 in 3 married women has had an affair. And a sampling survey conducted in June 2022 revealed that 55% of married women and 43% of married men admitted to having affairs. So women are worse than men in being faithful to their spouse, according to this survey in China. So Mr. Pan remarked in an interview that the proportion of married women having affairs in China is the highest in the world. So not only China has the highest divorce rate, it also has the highest infidelity rate among women. And the causes, there are a lot of Chinese articles, Chinese people looking for the causes, and they're mostly economically related. So a survey shows that almost 73% of husbands work overtime weekly. Every week they work overtime. And 60% of husbands spend less than 3 hours at home each week. Could you imagine? 60% of Chinese husbands spend less than 3 hours at home each week. This means that women see the greasy uncle next door. Greasy uncle is a term, a colloquial term for a flirtatious older man. Okay, so these women see the greasy uncle next door far more often than their husbands. And also, as the economy tanked, more women feel compelled to find a sugar daddy And guess what? Retired government officials became very attractive because of their steady high income from their very lucrative pension packages and also, benefits, including health care. So single retired government officials in their 60s and 70s are very attractive, even for young women in their 30s and 40s. So the road rage in Zhuhai therefore highlights the ultimate conflict between ordinary Chinese who struggle very hard to make a living, to hold on to his family, and the privileged government officials who don't have to do anything to have a good life. It also highlights the level of judicial corruption in China. The court system is set up by the privileged and for the privileged. I'm sure if the men, Mr. Fan, who want to appeal, right? If you want to appeal in the division, in the divorce settlement, and the court redistributed their assets, this tragedy could have been avoided. But no, those who have the power will absolutely use it. It's in their second nature already. Here in the West, you may say, well, some men, want to show off, their power, maybe to impress their women. But in China, I don't think that's the case. It's their second nature. They think if they don't use their power to get things done for themselves or for those they love, is a sign of weakness. So they use it. They think not using it is strange. Here, people know it's abuse of power, so they only use it in extraordinary circumstances. Over there, it's the opposite. If you don't use it, then you're weird. So this is, in my opinion, the true tragedy of today's China. Also, the case highlights how the CCP has tried to divert attention by blaming people's suffering on foreign hostile forces, as we've seen in the BBC's video clip. Following the incident, the Japanese embassy in China issued a safety warning the next day, advising Japanese citizens in China to maintain a low profile and avoid speaking Japanese loudly in public to prevent drawing attention. See, I think these foreign nationals, particularly the Japanese, have learned their lessons. They want to stay out of trouble. While no Japanese citizens were harmed in Zhuhai, the embassy noted a rise in violent incidents across China in recent months and urging expatriates to remain vigilant. On the night of November 12th, which was Tuesday night, members of the public placed candles and flowers at the crash site to mourn the victims. But these items were removed shortly by cleaning crews, reportedly acting on high-level instructions. Local police and security personnel also prevented people at the scene from taking pictures. People were warned sternly that filming is prohibited. Now, I think the pressures facing Chinese society now has extended far beyond the economic or political realm. The pressures have also encompassed interpersonal relations and social issues, such as social conflicts. So against this backdrop, public distrust of the government has gradually deepened. And I think society disorder has become an irreversible trend. Things like this, will happen, will continue to happen. And how fragile the CCP's governance structure is, right? The fragility of the CCP's governance structure has already become apparent. People can see that. And this is the reason why the local officials are very nervous. And this is why Xi Jinping has spoken out over this case. He does not make comments about this type of tragedies because it's not good for him to say anything. but he felt compelled to say something because it happened because of the number of officials that were involved. I mean, the number of officials that became the victims in this tragedy. So this is not a small case. I think it's the best case to show you exactly what's happening in China. Although on the surface, it's one crazy man, ramming his car into the crowds. But if you really analyze what's happening, you see it's a gradual buildup of many problems over the years, and it has erupted. So that's all. That's all I have for you tonight. Let me see if it makes sense to you. All right. Let's see. Questions? I see some super stickers. Boycott China. Boycott China. 777. Lady Lay, with love from me and Neil Diamond. Okay. I still haven't figured out what the song is. But all right. Well, maybe I'll check it out. All right, let's see. Well, thank you. Thank you for the support. Someone said, okay. All right, that seems to be all. I reached the bottom of the chats. Wow. Let's see. Oh, Netflix Soaring. Here we go. Peaceful revolution made impossible makes violent revolution inevitable. Well, this is very philosophical. I need to digest it. Peaceful revolution made possible makes violent revolution inevitable. Is there a connection between the two? Oh, sorry, I made impossible. You're right. Peaceful revolution made impossible makes violent revolution inevitable. That makes sense. Yeah, that's true. JFK, I think, said this incident that guy suffered, except in terms of, So although this program is about a recent tragedy in China, but I do want to talk about the marriage fallout in China, because when I was researching, now this is just some extra information about the high divorce rate in China. I remember years ago, I had a neighbor who was a woman working for a pharmaceutical company. And then she's Chinese American. So she has a cousin living in China in a third tier city, not a large city, but a relatively small city. So one day, my neighbor called her cousin in China. So the two women were talking, we're kind of comparing notes about their life. So my neighbor said, oh, I'm so stressed out. I have between a job and a house and a husband and 2 boys. And she's like, I just don't have any time left. And then her cousin on the other end of the phone said, why? Why do you stress yourself like that? We don't do that. We live a life called 双轨制, like a double-tracked life. And so my neighbor asked her, what's a double-track life? And her cousin said, well, it's in addition to having a husband, we all have a lover. And so my neighbor was shocked. Well, how could that be possible? What about your kid? And then her cousin said, well, the kid goes to boarding school. So we only come together as a family on the weekends when the kid is back. So we pretend to be a family only for the kid. But the other days, he has his mistress, I have my lover, and that's what we call a double track. And so her cousin in China was advising my neighbor to take it easy, enjoy life, have a good time. Why do you get yourself stressed out? My neighbor told me the story. And she said she couldn't believe the level of depravity in China. And she said, it's not like my cousin is like wealthy or anything. And she said, my cousin is is a clerk working at a factory. I mean, she was just making very average income. And she said, here you would think boarding school is for the wealthy families, right? But no, in China, they have boarding schools for every social strata. So even poor people could send their kids to boarding school so that the parents have time enjoying their life. So, my neighbor was telling me this, and we were just saying how much China has changed. It's just like unbelievable. And she said her cousin is just a very, very ordinary Chinese living in a third-tier city. And that's her life. And then she even made it sound like this is what everyone does in China. So when I was researching the high divorce rate in China, I remember that story. But that was quite some years ago. I don't know if that's still happening in China because I haven't been back for a long time. So those of you who have experience in China probably can share more about your experience in China. But I remember that story. I haven't been talking to my neighbor. I mean, I moved away, and she moved away too. So we haven't been in touch. But her story. I remember how wide her eyes opened when she told me the story. Anyways, just a little bit information on that. Alan Mandel, do local officials and even police feel vulnerable to large-scale social unrest? Do the Chinese citizens sense a weakening central government? I don't know if the average Chinese citizens have sensed a weakening central government. Those of us living outside China have witnessed. I mean, there's a battle going on between the central and the local government. They're battling resources. They're fighting for resources. So you're right. The central government is, their power is weakening. But then they control the tax revenue. I don't think average Chinese citizens have sensed this battle or noticed a weakening central government. I think to them it's an issue of how they're going to survive on a daily basis. So they don't even think in the political direction because they're trained not to think anything politically. But to them, it's just a basic question of how do I survive from day to day? I mean, think about that man. He probably had a very successful business. Otherwise, the court wouldn't order him to give 1.1 million yuan to his ex-wife. He probably had made some money, but now he's going to lose everything because of that government official. And it's not his fault. The fact that he suffered, his business suffered, and he's not able to make good money. I mean, it's not his fault. But someone else stole everything from him, his wife, his money, and even interfered in his divorce settlement. I don't know how you guys feel, but I think I could see how the man felt very, 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 very upset. I'm not saying that his action was justified. I mean, it's wrong. You should not attack. You should not launch that kind of attack. But the society, the environment does not give him any hope to have it resolved. He does not have a place where he can vent or have some hope in his own future. The man feels hopeless. People only do that when they feel hopeless. So I think that's the tragedy. And people will sooner realize all the problems is actually between those who have and those who don't have, right? And those who have are essentially the government officials, because even the private entrepreneurs are losing money. Okay, I see Jeff Ramos. Off topic late, the J-20 fighter jet may reach March 10th with the Chinese characteristics. We may reach March 10th with Chinese characteristics. Yeah, I'm making part 2 of the video from the part one of the video was released Monday about the Chinese promo videos. I'm making part two, and I will talk about J-20 fighter jet. You will see clips of that. So I hope you will like it when it comes out. Daniel Dornes. Someone please help me how to pronounce your name. Referring to your story, do you think there's a disappeared? Sorry, where did? Do you think there's a connection between parents sending their kids away to boarding school and the kid never learn about a normal marriage or family? I think so. I think many Chinese people, many Chinese children did not grow up in a normal, healthy family. It's very sad. And many Chinese parents don't understand the importance of spending time with their children. Because they have been brainwashed. I mean, in a communist environment, a lot of their values have been distorted. They think as long as I provide the financial means and the material things to my children, then they're all set. That's what a lot of parents are thinking. And then they also think, well, as long as I send my children or my kid to study in the US or in the UK, and as long as they have a good education, then they'll be all set for life. They don't realize a lot of the young people who came here have other sorts of problems. So I think Chinese parents, many of them have neglected the mental health or the healthy upbringing of their children from a spiritual or mental perspective. It's a serious problem. That's why China does have a high incidence of mental health issues. Very good point. Valid point. Norbert Klotz. Chinese students only have enough money for bicycles. Grown-ups have more money for trucks. Students will become adults someday. So you're saying that one day we'll have truck rally? But truck rallies are easily disrupted by the authorities because it's more difficult for you to organize a truck rally because you have to communicate via social media, and then the government would know that beforehand. But the bikes, you don't know. I mean, you could have, it only happens on college campuses, people living in the same dorm. You could have hundreds of students living in one dorm, and they just said, oh, okay, let's all go now. Let's go get the bicycles. The government doesn't have time to stop them before they're already on the road. So the bikes are more flexible. It's more difficult for the government to intervene. And then if the truckers can do it, they would do it now. There are enough truck drivers who are upset and ready to rally if they can do it. You don't need to wait until these young people grow up to have the money to buy a truck. There are enough truck drivers upset, truck drivers. But I think it's difficult for them to get organized. Seek the truth. Trump has picked Senator Rubio, Mark Rubio, right, as a Secretary of State. I think this is great for a stance against China and for Taiwan. Yes, I think the CCP is scared because the CCP has declared during the first Trump administration, the CCP has declared, has sanctioned a number of US government officials for their anti-CCP stance. And Mark Rubio was the #1 on the list. So technically, he is sanctioning China. He's not welcoming China. He's not allowed to go to China. So this would be ironic. Now he's the Secretary of State. People are asking, how is China going to react when Trump sends him to China? Is China going to receive him? Because he's sanctioned. And then I think CCP gave a hint on how it's going to resolve this. The official Chinese media has already changed the translation of his name, like Lu Biao. They changed the first character. So this effectively made him a different person. So all of a sudden, he is welcome to China because he is not the one who is sanctioned. They're just playing word games to fool themselves. Yeah, so that seems to be CCP's solution to receive Mark Rubio in China in the event he goes there. I think that's funny. Anyways, but good question. I'm glad you brought it up. Okay, I think I saw another question somewhere. Sam Song. Hi, I'm interested in your opinion about the geopolitics between China and Australia. Since Trump getting to the House, is politics between the two countries will change. I value your opinion. I haven't really given that a lot of thought. I mean, right now, a lot of us who studies China, trying to understand the impact on the CCP, based on the cabinet, that Trump is building. So we know, yes, there's no way CCP is happy with the selection of people, with the team he's building, right? So his national security advisor, his trade representative, I mean, a number of people he has put in, they are hardcore anti-CCP. What do you? I don't know. They're very hawkish, shall we say? So the CCP is nervous. I think but the number one that scares them is Mark Rubio because of its own sanction against him. I will address the U.S.-Australia issue later on, even though that's not the focus of my study. I try to focus on China and the U.S., China and the rest of the world. Alan Mendel, off topic, but earlier today, China reported the retail sales up 4.8% year over, investment in real estate down, and industrial production rose. Are these reliable at all? Well, retail sales is up. Is that because of prices are up? Maybe the sales volume are not up. Real estate is down. I mean, real estate has to be down. Industrial production rose. I think it's possible because the Chinese enterprises are rushing to export. They're trying to. If I talked about this, China's exports soared last month. Actually, in the last 2 months. And also China's export to the US and to EU also soared. So that means Chinese businesses are trying to take advantage of this window of time before the new tariffs kick in. So they're trying to export as much as they can for the time being. And I think that's behind the industrial production rate. That could be the reason that drove up industrial rate. As far as consumption, I think it could be price driven. Or is it seasonal? Was it quarterly? But you didn't give me a time frame. Is that the third quarter? Was that the third quarter, or was that year to date or month? So I need to understand the time frame before I can respond. Okay. Dennis Wagner, what age group has the most surplus of men because of the one-child policy? And might this surplus make China more militarist? I can't say this word. Militaristic. I think if you think about it, the single-child policy has been around for 40 years? it started in the late 70s, but it wasn't serious until the early 80s, right? So I would say 40-year-old. So people, yeah, the 40-year-old, they are the people in their 40s are the first generation single child. So people in their 40s. So they are probably too old for PLA, but their children who are in their 20s are at the military age. So above people of 40, maybe the gender disparity isn't a big problem, but people in their 40s, will start to see this problem. Okay. All right. I think, 7 lilies. Should we as Americans continue to allow parallel societies like Chinatown to continue in our country? Chinatown is a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful place to go for Chinese food and buy Chinese groceries. There's Japantown, there's Koreantown. They're wonderful. So these physical establishments, they're fine. It's the organizations. Most people in Chinatown or in Chinese communities, I think are not necessarily backing the CCP, but there are certain community leaders who are controlled by the CCP may have a big impact, on these Chinese communities. So I think the U.S. government need to focus on these community leaders, but I think Chinatown, as much as like Japantown or Koreantown, they're wonderful places. I think they should. I think without the CCP's influence, they would do even better. That's my opinion. Now there are Chinatowns everywhere. But before, 20 years ago, it's very exciting even for me to go to Chinatown, on weekends, to have authentic Chinese food and do grocery shopping. It's like a field trip on the weekends. Okay, that seems to be all. I thank you everyone for joining me. Someone say Rising Stars 777. Marco Rubio is blacklisted by CCP. How is it going to work? I've heard from news that Wang Yi will have to talk to Mark to work. Yeah. How is that going to work? Well, the CCP has already decided to change his name in Chinese. So they're going to translate his name by using a different character. So he is a different Marco Rubio than before. So he is not subject to the blacklist or the sanction. So that's how the Chinese is going to avoid this problem, this embarrassment that they created on their own. Alrighty. That's all. All right. That's all for tonight. I will see you over the weekend. Okay? Bye-bye. No, someone said, Frank K, I love going shopping at the TNT supermarket. Yeah, in Canada, in Toronto. Oh, they're the best. I miss TNT in Canada, in Toronto. They have fabulous food. Yeah. All right. Bye. Bye. Well, speaking of food, that makes me hungry. Bye.